Welcome back to Crystal Living Sober. Today I have a special guest speaker, Travis Sackett, and he is the author of My Life with Karma. Thank you for coming on my podcast. So excited to have you here.
Hey, Krista, thank you. I appreciate you bringing up the book too. That's awesome.
Yeah, of course. Let's start off by you telling the audience and listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you live now, how long you've been sober.
Sure, definitely. So I'm from Wisconsin. I grew up about an hour north in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. I used to be a police officer, so that's something that's a little unique about me because you don't hear too many officers share their story, especially ones that were once addicts. So that's part of the reason come on and share with you. Aside from that, I've been sober since October 2013. So it's been about a little over 8 years.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I only have 3. I can't wait till I have 8. Like, that's amazing. I love when people have long times.
Hey, three
Um,
is awesome though too.
yeah,
So give
yeah.
yourself credit.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Um,
welcome.
but so you have a book out and it's still in the top 10 on Amazon. Can you tell us a little bit about your book and what inspired you to write the book?
Sure, definitely. Book is My Life with Karma. I have it right here. Um, and yeah, it's a recovery memoir. Essentially, it goes over my entire story and really just breaks it down for the readers. What it I wrote it to really give people a sense of what it actually takes to recover. Because I've read enough memoirs where it was like,
Mhm.
man, they just made it sound too easy. Like it's not just you go to a few meetings, you hit maybe an IOP, and all of a sudden you're good to rock. And it
Yeah.
just kind of bothered me because like a lot of the books I read, I'm like, okay, they need to go deeper. Like that's just not gritty, not raw enough. And with my story, I went the exact opposite. I went like as raw and as transparent as possible in hopes that I'd better connect with people. And so far it's worked. I mean, the
Yeah.
reviews on Amazon have been awesome. I'm actually talking with Recovery Magazine and we'll see if I can do something with them in the very near future. But that's
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, for sure.
It's amazing. No,
So
you're a great writer. Like it just flowed, so couldn't put the book down when I read it.
uh,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I highlighted some parts from your book. I'll talk to you about that later. What was your drug of choice?
So my drug of choice was OxyContin.
Mhm.
I got hooked on Oxy after, well, I was huge into powerlifting too. So I was doing the
Mhm.
cop thing, doing dignitary protection for one of Wisconsin's governors. And then when I wasn't doing that, all I was doing was living in the gym, basically just
Mhm.
lifting. And I qualified for a regional tournament that I ended up winning and then qualifying for Worlds in Vegas. So
That's awesome.
basically, yeah, basically I was set up to I ended up getting a sponsor in powerlifting and I was really kind of set up to start making strides in the powerlifting community. And that's around the time I hurt my back. Initially I tweaked it in the gym, but I really didn't think too much of it. And then
Mhm.
I went to work, and at work at the time, there was a ton of protests going on in Wisconsin. So
Okay.
part of my job,
What
oh
year
yeah,
was this?
oh my goodness. This would have been like 2008, 2009.
Oh,
Or
okay.
no, that's way too soon.
No, like
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah. See, I have such
What
a
were
hard
they
time with,
protesting?
yeah, great question. So, the governor at the time was getting rid of unions. So, he basically
Right.
wanted to abolish unions across the state. And that obviously brought up a ton of feelings and just really like with union workers, they came together and they wanted to protest their rights, which totally understand that. So anyway, part of what I was doing was I was on a logistics team and we had to feed all the officers that were working the protest. and at any day there were up to 600 officers. So it was crazy, like the amount of people we had to get fed and just taken care of. So I was moving these giant coolers, and I'm a big dude, so I was like, okay, I'll do it myself, no big deal. Well, I twisted the wrong way and just instantly felt it in my lower back. Like I was like, okay, that's not good. Like that's
Mhm.
more than something like just like a muscle, something popped. I was like, all right,
Ugh.
not great. But I worked
Mhm.
through it, and I worked a few more days of the protest before I finally had a day off and was able to go to a doctor. And when I went to
Mhm.
the doctor, they said I herniated two discs in my lower back, L4 and L5, and one of them was on the verge. They thought it was going to rupture because
Oh
you
my
could
god.
actually, yeah, just looking at my spine, you could even see like
Mhm.
the bulge. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is not a
Mhm.
thing.
I couldn't
So he
imagine
put
that
me,
pain. Back pain's
no,
the worst.
it really is. I mean, you probably know too from being pregnant, like
Yeah.
just the different amount of back pain and things you run into. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I was in rough shape. And basically went to a doctor. He hooked me up with 30 days of oxy and told me I had to see my primary care doctor and then probably a specialist. Well, is I really didn't think too much of it. Like it was just like any other
Mhm.
drug. I took it normally, took it as prescribed, and it worked. And I was like, okay, this is great. Like I was still able to lift about 80, 85% of what I was doing. So I figured fuck it. I was just gonna keep doing what I was doing, not worry about going to a doctor and try to go to Worlds.
So
So
is
that's
this so
basically,
so you took the pills for the 30 days normally and you were still working out?
yeah, I
You
was.
were still going to
Yo.
the gym? So the pills
Yeah.
kinda like for pain medication, right? So it just eased the pain so you could function normally?
Yeah, yeah. Basically,
Okay.
what it did, well, they also gave me something for muscle spasms and something else for, I think, for sleep too. So
Okay.
I remember I was taking a combination of three different things.
Yeah.
I think trazodone might have been in that mix. I'm not sure what
Okay.
else, but yeah. I mean, at first I looked at oxy as a miracle drug because it literally did work for me. It was like, okay, I'm not feeling the pain and I'm able to function. So this is great. So then I ended up getting a 90-day refill. Basically from the same doctor who said, okay, we can do 90 days while you try to get everything sorted out, but after that, I'm going to have to cut you off. So it was over that 90-day time period that my relationship with the drug really developed. Like, and I
Okay.
call it a relationship because
Yeah.
all of a sudden it took control over everything else. Like that was the most important thing in my life. Like I was
Mhm.
clock watching all the time, just waiting until I could take my next dose. And then eventually I said, forget clock watching. I'm just going to take it when I feel like I need it.
Mhm.
And that's where I started running into trouble because instead of taking it like every 3 to 4 hours, I was taking it like every 1 to 2 hours. And then I
Mhm.
was running out faster than, like, I went through that 90-day supply in
Mhm.
like maybe 40, 45 days. So
Wow.
I needed, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
And so
So
they just
then,
gave you the 90, days prescription and then just cut you off, like, they wouldn't give you any
yeah,
more? Was this
no,
around the
not at all.
time where opioids were new to, like, to doctors in the scene?
Yeah,
So they were
newer.
recommending it for pain instead of anything else, I see.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like
Mhm.
the hot new product at the time. So
Mhm.
basically, like if you went in almost with any kind of pain, I would guess you were
Yeah,
probably going to get a script. And
yeah.
that's just how it was. So basically, after that, I did a little bit of doctor shopping. I know I went to like a different walk in, ended up getting another 30 days. It wasn't Oxy, it was something else, but it helped.
Mhm.
But basically, I was craving the
It
Oxy. It
wasn't as
was like,
strong.
exactly.
Mm,
Didn't do the things I wanted it to do. Like, I wanted to be able to still lift. I wanted to be actually tie my shoes and not have like
yeah.
back spasms, things like that. So it was like, all right, well, this other med kind of helped. It really didn't do. That's when
Mhm.
a guy through my gym who I knew he was able to get like steroids, stuff like that. When we were talking, just like giving each other spots at the gym, I told him more or less like, hey, I've been taking oxy for my back. I got cut off, and he's like, well, I can get you. and
Mm,
that was basically all I needed to hear. It was like, all right, there's my in. So I ran with it.
wow. So when you didn't have the pills in your system, you kind of felt the withdrawals right away, like you needed it, like you became
Oh
dependent so
yeah,
quickly. That's
definitely.
that's
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
it like set its hooks in so deep within that 90-day period that it was insane. Like I said, not only like the clock watching, but like just constantly thinking,
Yeah.
not being able to change kind of my focus other than thinking about the drug and like when can I take this again? Like I'm starting to feel my back, I'm starting to feel pain. This is
Mhm.
uncomfortable. And then it went from uncomfortable to more like unbearable. And then it was like, okay, I still have I can take another pill. And that's the way I was living day in and day out. And
And you were
basically it
still
just
going to
wasn't
work
working. Yeah, I was still going to work.
on the drugs as a cop?
Yup. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't doing dignitary protection anymore. I was actually at
Mhm.
UW-Madison, and I was a security supervisor. So, and just, using at work too, like I wrote in the book that I was
Mhm.
starting my day by crushing and snorting one pill and then taking another one. And the reason I was doing that, I just wasn't getting like the upload in my
Yeah.
system fast enough. Like people who are oxy users know that like usually if you take them orally you have kind of like this calm demeanor where you're just
Oh, it's
constantly like
basically a downer?
yeah,
It's not really
exactly.
an upper?
No, not at all. So in order to combat that, like not only was I ridiculous amount of caffeine, like I was doing like pre-workout in like just crazy shit like that,
Mhm.
just to try to counteract it. But also I found if I snorted one, I got more of an upper feel than the downer.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like balance that out. Like I said before I knew it, I was so deep that I was working with the dealer and then after that, I was
Like, how much
paying
were you
so
buying from the dealer?
oh my goodness. So $100. Yeah, I was paying $10 a pill. So I think he knew that as a cop alternatives. So it was
Mhm.
like he taxed me like to the full extreme. And when I would buy the pills, so I would get 30 at 300 or 60 at 600. So I get 60 at a time and I'd blow through those in about 15 to 20 days. So
Wow.
yeah, so like my monthly habit was anywhere from like 18 to $2,400.
Damn, that's
Um
expensive.
yeah, yeah. So clearly on a cop's salary, I couldn't afford that. Like that
Mhm.
just wasn't in the cards. Like I had a mortgage on top of that. My wife at the time had a horse. Like so we had way more money going out than we had. And at
Mhm.
first I sold off like Nintendo with all my games, other things that were collectible that meant something to me from my childhood, but I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I need the pills more. Once I ran out of like personal items that were
Mhm.
worth money, then I began stealing
From
from the gym, from the same gym
okay.
I was working out at. Yeah, so,
Mhm.
without implicating other people, like someone at the gym where I could get the information through, and then I knew someone that would buy the
Mhm.
information. So that's like the middle person. Yeah, until I got caught. So,
How long did
um,
that last?
oh, I was stealing off for about 6 months before they caught
That's a
me. Like,
long time.
yeah,
Yeah,
like I think honestly, I think they could on me pretty quickly, but instead they were building a case.
I see.
And I got arrested. Yeah, they came a file like this thick and dropped it on the table and were
Mm,
like, okay,
shit.
like,
Mm.
oh shit, I know
You were
exactly.
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I'm like not gonna say that to them. So I played
Mhm.
dumb at first, what you're talking about, and then eventually, I'm not gonna say anything. I need to. And then
Yeah.
right there, arrested, take handcuffs in front of all the officers was stuffed in the back of the squad
Mm.
car and taken to the same jail that I people to. So it was
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty rough.
Whew.
Yeah, right.
So what happened in court? Did
I
it take a
mean,
while for you to, like, get sentenced?
it did. It took almost a year.
Mhm. Yep.
Because like that I had at the time was he was a former DA, good attorney. And he basically he went back and forward with the DA. In the meantime, I got started to get some sober time. Basically, tried to kind of start to turn my life around. It was
Mhm.
all like falling apart, and just doing whatever I could do to make ends meet.
Mhm.
Came home, and my wife had moved out. So, like, while I was at work, I was working a double, and yeah, I came home
Mm.
an empty house. And yeah, it was what
Did
it.
she know did she know that you were on opioids? Did she ever suspect you were using? Because I mean,
She so
with
she
some people,
claims
it's
she
easy to tell, but others, it's
yeah,
just like, you don't know, like
yeah, she claimed she didn't. Like, she thought that I just had a really bad problem with caffeine and possibly
Mm,
alcohol. That's what she told my
mhm.
best friend.
Yeah, that's
So
tough.
it
So at
was.
this point, you're done. How long did you do like the program for, or what kind of treatment
So
was it?
I it was a counseling, and then it was like not mandatory but voluntary, like, night classes that I would go to as. Wasn't
For
an
the
IOP
court?
yet, though. No,
Like the
no.
oh, okay.
This was all beforehand. Like, this was
Mhm,
basically, like, things that my attorney told me, like, "Dude, you need to get your shit together. Otherwise,
mhm.
if you go in front of court, like, just a complete mess, that's not gonna
Yeah.
help your." So, like, I was getting sober, but not necessarily for the right reasons. It was more or
Right.
less like, this is what I have to do. So I'm like,
Yep.
I'll do it. And I mean, I ended up getting a year that way, but it was like white knuckling, just not a good time. Like, I was not in sobriety at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Because when you have
yeah.
to do it, it's different than when you want to do it. I feel like
Oh,
when we
for
have
sure.
to do something, like whatever probation or the court say, then we're gonna just get it over with, but we're not technically ready to stop using, and
Yeah.
that's how it was for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
hands down. So basically I get sober, and
Mhm.
one night I relapse.
Okay.
I decide that I'm gonna go to a bar. Like, I didn't relapse on my drug of choice. I just decided, like, okay, I couldn't sleep. I had a lot, and I was like, I just need a drink. Like, need to be able to go to sleep, get some quality
Mhm.
sleep, and I'll be better the next day. Well,
Okay,
that
but at
did
this
not
point,
work out. Yeah.
are you a year off opioids?
Yeah, I'm a year off
Wow.
opioids.
Did
Yeah.
you use any I don't know what they take instead of opioids, like Suboxone or
Oh,
anything, like,
no, I
you just
didn't.
did a cold turkey or, like, you
Yeah,
had to wean yourself off?
no, actually, I mean, that's what I should have done. Bit about it, like, and this is a disclaimer for anyone listening, don't do what I'm gonna tell you I just did. Like, it is not smart at all.
Yeah.
So, I took a week, I prepped, and I was just gonna detox at home.
Mm,
Basically, I went to Walgreens, got some bottles of water, some put everything in a bag because I knew it was going to be bad. I just didn't know how bad, and was like,
mhm,
going to face this. Ended up dumping the rest of the pills I had down the garbage
mhm.
disposal. And I remember, so Karma, the dog that I had at the time, who was like my ride or
Yeah, talk
die.
about your dog.
Okay, so anyway, so Karma, who's like my ride or die, like, I made
Mhm,
us both like a steak dinner to be like, okay, we're
mhm,
gonna like celebrate this before I get sober. And
mhm,
yeah, man, that weekend was absolute hell. Like, I ended up sicker than I've ever been before. Pretty
mhm,
much just on the bathroom floor, not being able to do anything other than throw up and lay back down on the floor.
mhm,
Basically, like, I just wrote it out. There were a few times where I didn't I felt like it really felt like I wasn't gonna make it. Like,
mhm.
it was that bad, like, because
Oh
not
god.
only physically was I pain came back, so everything that I wasn't feeling,
Mm,
all of a sudden I was feeling again. So it was just like the most intense pain. It was like
mhm.
uncomfortable, itchy feeling on top of just being
Mm,
massively ill. But I'm through the
wow.
weekend.
Did having your dog help?
Oh,
Oh,
of course. So yeah, she's what kept me alive, to be
sorry.
honest with you.
Tell us how you, rescued Karma.
Okay, so I actually heard that I was working with at the gym. Like, he told me, and he's like, "Yeah, there's this dog that's chained out to a tree or a pity." sure what it is, but he's like, I know you love dogs, and if you want to go check it out, the people will probably just give it. Like at that point in time, I mean, I was barely taking care of myself, so I'm like, do I have a dog to the mix? Like, can I even? But I was like, well, I don't want this animal to suffer, and just go check it out. So I drive out to this house. Yeah, there's this poor, emaciated dog, like underweight. You can see her like her ribs, her backbone, everything, and she's just chained to a tree. Yeah, there was like but no water in it. It was flipped over. There was no food, and I'm like, it's fucked. So
Right.
I went up, knocked on the door. No one knocked again. No one. I saw someone like play with the blinds and like look outside. So I'm like, okay, someone's
Right.
here. They just, are kind of like, well, what am I gonna do? Do I take this dog? Like, what? I don't know. And like, if I leave her here, so
Mhm.
the hardware store on the way to this house, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I went to the hardware store and went knocked on the door again, told them basically, I want your dog. Like, I have money on me, and no one answered. And I was like, just walked out and was pretty careful. Like, I threw some French fries, like to distract, get the bolt cutter on the chain. So I ended up clipping her with the bolt cutter, and some careful negotiation got her into the back of the car, and that was so.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah,
the bond that
yeah.
you end up having with your dog through your story. You guys have to buy the book to read about it. But
Oh, for
it
sure.
reminded me of it reminded me of my rescue dog Zila because she was with me for about 7 or 8 years before she passed away. But she was a part of my, active addiction. And then when I recovered, I had her for 1 more year before she passed. But yeah, dogs are the best.
Oh, they really are. And it's that unconditional love. Like, you can't find that anywhere else. Or at least I don't think. Like, I mean,
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
unconditional.
Uh,
Yeah. All right. So you
oh, I'm
sobered
sorry.
up on your own. That is amazing. You don't really hear of anybody detoxing
Yeah.
themselves. What happened
No,
after
no. And
that? You
so, I did the detox, year under my belt, and then, and the night I went out, I ended up drinking Long Island's. Like, I was there for about 2 hours, and I think I put down anywhere from like 6 to 8 Long Island's. Like, just not, definitely had a serious buzz going on. And then they called Barclays. So I was like, all right, well, on my drive home, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna walk the rest of the way, but first I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom to be sick. So I ended up peeing on this
Mhm.
side of this guy's house and throwing up. Then I was like, okay, I think I'm good to walk home. Leaned up against the car, was like my shit, just get like enough gusto to get home, and ended up setting off the car alarm. So now all of a
Nice.
sudden, yeah, car alarm's going off. I'm like, I've got nowhere to go. I mean, I'm 6 feet, like at the time I was around like 220, 230. So I'm like, do I hide? What do I do? So I
And
ran,
you're
tried to
you're
hide
on
behind
someone
the car.
else's car, right?
Yeah, yeah, someone else's car. Like my car is at this time, my car is like crashed,
You
kind of
left
like
it.
half propped up on
Mhm.
the curb. Yeah, yeah. So I tried to hide behind a neighbor's car in a different driveway, and I'm like, I'm sticking out. I'm way too big to do this.
Mhm.
This is not working for me. I open the car door, get in the car, and just put the seat back and try to like basically
Yeah.
this neighbor comes outside, he sees me in the vehicle. He's got a big Maglite
Mhm.
flashlight, and he's like shining the light, screaming
Shit.
out of the car, everything like that. I'm trying to explain to him I'm drunk, I live
Mhm.
up the street, and like, and he seemed cool for a second. So I'm like, okay, I'll get to the car. He said when I got out of the car, I lunged at him. Report, I'm pretty sure I just took a
Mhm.
drunk stumble because I was not trying to
Yeah.
fight crazy. And he ended up beating me with the Maglite flashlight. I fractured my
Jesus.
skull. Yeah, so I fractured my skull in 3 different spots, and air actually reached my brain cavity. So, I got
Mhm.
when I wake up, police and paramedics are there. Like, I have no idea what's going on. I completely like lost a huge chunk of time in there. Next thing I know, they're like, "Yeah, we're taking you." First hospital I went to, they couldn't treat me. Like my wounds were severe. So then I had to get transported to a second hospital. And that's where they were like, yeah, you're going to have multiple surgeries. one to repair all the damage to like the left side of my face. And then the other one was to get the air out of my brain cavity.
Mm.
So I had injuries, and for a little over before the police came. And I was the whole
Mm.
time this all went on, I was on probation from the thefts that we talked about earlier.
Mm.
So I violated my probation. So they're like, okay, you're going back to jail. I literally went from having the surgeries to 2 days, not even recovered. Like my goal, I remember my goal for the day was to get up, use the bathroom by myself, and to try to take a shower. Like that was the goal the
Mhm.
nurses set for me. And instead of doing that, I got brought to jail.
God.
So yeah, so I get to jail and I'm a
Mhm.
complete mess. Like the whole side of my face is swollen. I can't see out of my eye. It's just, I'm basically falling apart. And they're
Like,
like,
straight
well,
from the
you're,
hospital.
yeah, straight from the hospital. So, like, you're not fit for general
Mm.
population, but the jail, they didn't have like a medical wing or anything. So they decided, well, the best place for me was solitary confinement. So I went right from the hospital to jail to solitary confinement. And that's where I spent the next 7 days recovering until they said that I was good enough to join like general population.
Oh god.
So yeah, and that's the
Yeah.
story that got me sober. That's really what was my rock bottom
Mhm.
and my breaking point. So,
Mhm. And I know jail
yeah.
isn't easy. I mean, I only spent 30 days in jail after my second OUI, but, you know, I noticed that they don't really have doctors, like, they don't do a lot for people who are injured or who come in, like, you know, it's
No,
hard.
not at all. Yeah, it's really hard. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, basically, I mean, it was what it was. And I had to, so with the head injury too, I lost my
Yeah.
ability to write, and I was really struggling with speech. I
Mhm.
had aphasia, which is what like most stroke patients
Mhm.
have, where you get stuck on words, like you can't get it out. So I had to reteach myself how to write and kind of
Mhm.
even how to talk again.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah,
Wow.
it was,
That's amazing.
yeah,
Shit. Wow. And
exactly.
being a cop in jail, like, were you just, like,
Yeah,
worried about
scary.
that at all,
Oh
or
my
did no
gosh.
one mess with you, or
Being a big guy helped. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
definitely is in my favor. The other thing I did in jail, like, my mom is, well, she was an art teacher. So I can draw. So
Mhm.
the one thing I did right away for other inmates was like if anyone needed anything drawn on like a card home or a tattoo design, anything like that,
Mhm.
I was the guy. So instead of being known as like a cop, I was known as like the pod artist. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah,
Okay.
you need something, go to Travis. Like he'll hook you up for a design." And then yeah. So that's how I got
Yeah.
by. Like was literally just doing artwork and basically keeping my head down. Hell, no one recognized me because I realized, like, dude, if they recognize me and they are like, yeah, this guy used to be a cop,
Yeah.
like, I would have been fucked. Like, there
Mhm.
was no way that would have been a good.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I got through it. I survived it without
Yeah.
anyone recognizing me or anyone really like. I never got in like a big fight or anything like that. Just like I
That's
said, kept
good.
my head down and figured my shit out.
So, getting injured, going to jail, that was your rock bottom. That's
Oh
what
yeah.
completely made you change your life around, become sober. Um, and when you got out of jail, were you placed on probation? What happened? Parole?
Yeah, so when I was out of jail, so my probation got revoked.
Mhm.
I think almost 9 months. And then I had to do an additional, I'm not sure how long, on the ankle
Mhm.
bracelet.
Yep.
So I was on the bracelet, actually, and I took like full advantage of the situation because they allowed you to go to school. So I was like, I had my degree and I already went to college and I had my bachelor's, but I'm like, well, maybe I can get my master's. So I actually got into school. I got hooked up with school, and then the other thing I did was an IOP program. So like Mondays, Wednesdays, I was going to treatment like every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that really helped. Like that was kind of like the
Mhm.
missing piece for me in terms of getting sober.
Yeah.
So between IOP and then getting myself back into school, I had a lot going for me. The only problem was with the head injury, like school was so
Mhm.
hard.
Yeah.
Especially because I still like my short-term memory. I I'm considered fully disabled right now from my brain injury
Mhm.
because like I'll remember we talked today, but I won't so it made things really difficult. So I made it through a semester of school, but like there was no way I was going to be able to complete the whole program. So I ended up dropping out and going back and serving at the restaurant and doing some catering.
Wow, you've been
Yeah.
through so much, and yeah, your book is amazing. Some of the parts are hard to take in because, like, wow, just a rare, real story.
To like when I told my story, that was really important to me. Like with being
Mhm.
an ex-cop and like knowing the
Yeah.
relationship like a lot of our former users have with negative,
Mhm.
like and
Yeah.
like the side of it, like look, people like police are people too, and like we fought honestly, and I don't think
Mhm.
accountability there, like to be real with you, like there's because
Mhm.
police have one of the highest rates of alcohol here, and yet how many police do you see sharing their story and being like,
Yeah.
I was an alcoholic and now I'm so I really wanted to
Mhm.
make it a point and be like, hey, look, like and just kind of show the other side of it. So
Yeah, and that takes a lot to even write a book or to even come out and, tell your story. So there was this painting. What happened with the painting?
like I thought I was like finally over anything
Yeah.
that like related to my using days. And I ended up moving to Arizona. Like the girl that I was dating
Mhm.
at the trainer and she got a place or a position at ASU for strength and conditioning. So it was like it was perfect. And I'm like, I want to get away from places where I used to use seeing, you know what I mean? Like just completely
Yeah.
new,
Oh,
fresh,
yeah.
like, okay, moved to Arizona and I'm there for about 2 months. And one day, and all of a sudden, I get a phone call from my mom. Oh shit! Like, what's up? And she's like, "Have you turned on your TV?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." Like, and she's like, "Well, I was watching the Today Show, and across the bottom, like, of the screen where they have the little ticker thing, police officer accused of stealing $100,000 painting." And then like, it went on to say like Wisconsin police, like blah blah blah. And my mom's just like, and I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, like I haven't thought
Mhm.
about this painting in years, but yeah, I definitely took a
Wow.
painting. So like when they were
Mhm.
changing governors, they were and like it was everything from like shirts that the governor had collected for different like events, these posters and a whole ton of shit
Mhm.
was gonna go to Goodwill. And they said to us, well, like if you pick anything out, write it down on this sheet of paper and initial it that okay, this is what you're taking. So I went through and I'm looking through like the posters, all this stuff, and I see this painting. Honestly, I thought it was an ugly painting, but it had this awesome gold frame. And like I'm like, I'm gonna take this thing and repurpose it. So I took it, threw it in a closet, didn't think about it for like a month, and then when I looked at it, I saw it had a gallery stamp on the back, and should have been honest and returned it and been like, look, someone fucked up and I don't think it should have been there. Instead, I ended up selling it to an art dealer in Connecticut. So years down the line, no one like talked to me about it. No one approached us, all of a sudden in the media. And like a few days later, I get a call from the police that I was wanted for questioning with the connection of the stolen painting and that I needed to return to Wisconsin. So basically, I end up flying back, getting an attorney again, going through everything all over again with the painting. And they basically told me, well, for the police and you have a criminal history, we're going to push
Mhm.
21 years on the painting. So I was facing 21 years based on
What?
the price of, yeah, based on the $100,000 price of the painting that they came up
Wow.
with. Now, granted, this painting, I sold it for $1,400 and they
Yeah.
had a dealer for like 3,000 for like 4 years and it never sold. So how they came up with
Mm.
a hundred,
That's
my attorney
outrageous.
time, Yeah. So I ended up pleading guilty to it and taking 4 years of felony probation, and 9 months on the ankle bracelet. So that was the painting. I wish there was, like, this awesome story that I,
What? Like, in that no, but that's what gave you the
that
felony
yeah, that's what I got
charge?
my felony from,
Ah, my
yeah.
god.
Yeah, because all,
That's
like,
awful. Mm.
the credit card stuff, I ended up with misdemeanors
Yeah.
on because there weren't any
Right.
transactions that were like a couple $100. So that's what gave me my felony. Ended up having to one of the other things they wrote into was I had my time in the state of Wisconsin. So I ended up having
Yep.
to move all the way
Move
back
back.
from Arizona back to Wisconsin, back to Dane County, where all the shit went down, and ended up serving 4 years on felony probation here.
That must have been triggering for you in a way.
It was being
Mhm.
back, like, I was seeing
Yeah.
people
The
again, it
people,
was all the
places,
same.
and things, yeah.
Exactly, it was all the same old shit. Basically, I was on my final strike. The only person that I
Mhm.
kept in my life, she's now my wife, and Karma, dog. I mean, those were, like, the 2
Yeah.
pieces that stuck. Everything else just went by the wayside by literally changing just gonna focus on going to meetings, going to work, and
Yeah.
basically just staying sober, and that's what I
That's awesome.
thank you.
Wow. I couldn't imagine that. I love where it says, "A mugshot should not define who I am, nor should it define those in recovery that have devoted their lives to living for a greater purpose." Can you talk a
Yeah.
little about that? Like, I know how that is. After getting my second OUI, there was a whole write-up about me in the paper from Stoughton, like this town in Mass. And then, like, honestly, like when I left that station that day, like I didn't expect to be blown up everywhere with my ugly
Sure.
mugshot like on the front page. And it's just hard, it was a hard thing to go through. And then, having it on the internet for everyone to look up. So I can understand, like, it shouldn't define who people are, especially like when they're trying to get their lives together afterwards.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and that's the point I was trying to make because so
Mhm.
often, like, you get hit with a label. Like, in my
Mhm.
position too, like, once I got that felony label, like, I honestly believe the F in felony stands for fucked, because once you get hit with it, it's so hard to even get a decent job or anything above that, like, and I felt like so many times it didn't matter, like, all the positive that I was doing like didn't necessarily matter because of the
Yeah.
label that I had.
Yeah.
And for years I had to fight against that, like, and fight against myself and kind of like just get over staying stuck with that label. And then to like you said, the mugshot, like anytime anyone Googled me, the first thing that came
Yeah.
up was my mugshot. And it's like I went to multiple job interviews, even where they said like,
Mm.
"Oh, you're a really great candidate," and like I even had someone say, "Oh, I'm surprised, like, you're so kind and so, like" I forget what they said,
Right.
"But you're a felon," and it's like, yeah, like, I
Yeah.
had problems earlier, and I don't know, it's always rubbed me the wrong way, so I wanted to make a point of that in the book that, like, we can't define people just based on their
Yeah.
past actions.
Yeah, I love where you wrote, "I believe most felons are never again given the benefit of the doubt or provided a fair working alternative once the indefinite label is in place. These forever labels, not current actions, continue to dictate a felon's worth to society even decades after the original crime was committed." And then it goes on, but it's so hard. Once you're labeled, you're labeled. And I wish society was different,
Well, and
anyways,
then
hopefully.
like, between
Yeah.
probably what you'd spend with attorneys and everything else, you end up being a fair amount of money
Mhm.
too.
Another favorite thing that you wrote was, "Living sober will always trump not living at all." I love
Oh, for
that.
sure. One's pretty self-explanatory, but
Mhm.
it's so
Yeah,
true.
that just reminded me of Krista living sober, and that's kinda where I got my name from, so I loved it. It
That's
will
awesome.
always trump not living at all because when we were in our active addictions, we weren't living, we were just
No.
existing, it was just pure misery every single day. And you just drank or did drugs just to escape. So living sober is just completely 180, completely different life altogether.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and to,
Mhm.
like, for me, coming so close to dying, like,
Mhm.
that in itself is so sobering
Yeah.
because it's like, "Holy shit, I could have died. Like, I very easily
Mhm.
could have died, and I had never looked at things like that before. Like, I was always like, "Oh, okay, like, this drug's not gonna kill me. This isn't gonna kill me."
How has life changed since you've been sober?
I mean, it's kinda like you said before, it's just everything that I used to do, like, not only do I no longer do, but it's like, it's not even a thought. Like, I live life each day to the fullest, and I mean, and I really just embrace, like, all the good things, all
Yeah.
the little things I used to take for granted. Now I actually, like, I look forward to those things. Like, even driving my wife to work in the morning, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, it's a pain in the ass. It's time we get to spend together, and it's awesome. And I have so much more gratitude. I think that's the other
Yeah.
huge thing about living,
Oh, yeah.
the things that I'm grateful for and the things I care about, and like relationships with family too, which has really helped. And I mean, there's so many things that I can say are a like, I really can't think of a negative. How
That's
about you?
awesome. Since in this 3 years that I've had being sober, like, amazing. It's just I never thought I could be this happy. I never thought I could have the things that I have in my life, a fiance, I'm having a baby, like, I was able to hold a job down. I couldn't do that before when I was drinking.
Yeah.
Just the pure joy and happiness, like all these amazing feelings that I didn't feel before either. Every day just brings new blessings on blessings, and I'm so grateful too because you have to have gratitude in your sobriety.
Oh yeah.
And then and
Yeah.
honesty is such a huge part of recovery as well.
Well, I mean, think about all the times, like, either you bullshitted yourself or you bullshitted other people while you're in
Mhm.
active addiction.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just the lies that I had to tell, and like trying to keep those stories straight, and then just like be unhappy. And then I
Mhm.
think about it now, and it's like, I don't have to worry about that now. I don't
Mhm.
have like all scenarios where I have to be one person with group, one person with
Yeah.
another. It's like I can just be myself.
I agree. Like we used to put masks on, right?
Yeah.
For every different group, and I was such a liar. I was not an honest person. And like more than ever I try to be as honest as I can these days. I have nothing I need to lie about, nothing I need to hide anymore.
Exactly, and I think that feeling is so freeing. Like, when you
Yeah.
get to that point, especially when you come from a point where you are telling lies and you are
Mhm.
to, like, make shit up to cover your tracks, and, like,
Mhm.
it's so freeing, and it's so different to just be able to say, "What I did today," and not have to worry about, "Okay, well,
Mhm.
are they gonna find out I did A, B, or C?" It's like, "No, I just this is it." So, it's
Right.
cool. Having family back in my life helps too, because for so
Mhm.
long I felt so
Yeah.
much like shame that
Yeah.
I it was so hard to talk to them and to be like, okay, because of the things that I did, I just felt like I wasn't like, okay,
Yeah.
I knew I was still worthy of love, but like I felt like I had betrayed them so many times that I really wasn't worthy of their love.
Mhm.
And now it feels like it's so much different. It's just reconnect and have those relationships back means everything.
Yeah, that was the one of the worst feelings in active addiction, just feeling like so like ashamed, so I don't know, less than that like everything you were doing was wrong and like how I don't know. I mean, I felt unworthy. I felt like it was so bad. I think that's why I was always drunk in front of my family, just always constantly drunk, just escaping how I felt. But today we get to feel these feelings head on. Sobriety, it gives us a
Exactly.
gift.
Oh, for sure. And too,
Yeah.
I think with being able to feel the feelings, like, I mean, I'm able to have real relationships with people where I actually care
Mhm.
feeling today, or like how
Oh yeah.
they've been. Where in the past it's like, oh, I had to
You
ask,
don't
but
care.
yeah, exactly. I wasn't listening to
Yeah.
the conversation. It
Right.
was like I was just there. How hard can you get hit and just keep moving forward? How hard could I get hit by someone else and just pick the pieces and be able to put it back together.
Mhm.
So
But for you, it was definitely, like, one thing after another after another. There's always just something, and, like, I was never free from that until sobriety.
I think we make such train wrecks out of our lives that, like, it
Mhm.
takes a while to pieces back together, and it's hard when else life is moving on and, like, people
Yeah.
obviously are in the same state, so it's like they're constantly moving forward while we're trying to kind of pieces and
Yeah.
rebuild. I mean, eventually you meet somewhere in the middle, but for some time, I mean, that's hard.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Can you give any sober advice to the listeners and the audience if they're sober curious, if they are still struggling with their active addictions, or if they're already in recovery?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before, honesty being such a big piece. Think,
Mhm.
like, for me, it would be the sooner you can be honest with yourself and start being honest, that's just the sooner you're gonna get the right kind of treatment and the right kind of
Mhm.
I mean,
Right.
because if you're still, like, telling lies or you're still, like, covering, still just not really doing what you're doing, the help is not gonna come, like, but I felt like if you can just being real with people some of those relationships, and all of a sudden doors start opening for you again. Because
Mhm.
that's like one thing I realized too. Like when you're in active addiction, like your options get so limited.
Yeah.
Doors are just like constantly being closed. And like once you're in
Mhm.
recovery, it's like things start opening up again and doing so much more, like more than you even thought you were capable of doing. So just stick with it and the honesty the best you
Yeah, I love that. And like we were talking about before, like when we're not ready to get sober, like when we have to do things because someone told us, then it's not gonna happen. We have to be willing to admit that we have a problem, and then that goes along with the honesty part.
that's exactly it.
Awesome. What are you most
Okay.
grateful for in your life today?
I'm most my wife Vanessa, like hands
Mhm.
down, because she's been the that I could hope for, and honestly, she works so much harder. Like she's the one who like really kind of pushed me to get the book out there. Now the next thing I'm doing to become a recovery coach, and she was the one who encouraged me to do that. I appreciate the help of her and love her so much.
That's awesome. I love that.
Thank you, dear. Appreciate
Well,
that.
thank you. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. It was great having you.
All
Thank
right,
you so
take care,
much.
and
Have a
yeah,
good night.
best
Mhm.
semester too.
Thank you so much. We'll
You're
catch up.
welcome.
Uh, all
For
right.
sure. Okay.
Bye.